Hello, my name is Mike and I'm a yoga teacher. This evening we're going to do some movement and flow. And if you're feeling any tension from maybe sitting a lot of the day or not getting much movement, this practice will be for you. So it'll be some gentle, some movement, some moderate movement with maybe some twists and lunges, and then we'll work on some mobility. So we'll start, if you're seated, coming onto the mat, and then just taking a few deep breaths, bringing some awareness. Sitting, whatever posture is most comfortable for you, and finding the top of the head reaching up, tucking the core a bit, relaxing the shoulders down in line with the ears. The chin tucked in slightly. Taking a few more breaths here in the seated posture, kind of more erect but relaxed posture. We'll move through a flow. From the seated, we can move to the hands and knees and tabletop with our palms spread wide, our fingers spread wide, and our palms against the mats. Noticing rolling our hand from side to side on the mat, like that. Noticing any tension in the palm of the hands. If it's comfortable, being on the knees, and doing some movement around the hips and the knees, going in either direction, circles. All this while breathing, we can also add the shoulder joints. That whole complex there of muscles around the shoulders. And just moving all those, the wrists, the knees, the shoulders. And now we're going to move into child's pose, extending the arms forward and reaching the forehead down to the mat. Taking a few breaths in child's pose, extending the fingertips forward and reaching, paying attention to the upper back, pressing the shoulder blades down and back. Engaging our upper back muscles and our shoulders. Opening the chest, expanding towards the mats. And now, looking up toward the hands and kneeling onto hands and knees and pressing back into downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here. Returning to the hands and knees, let's move back into the child's pose again, extending the arms forward, forehead towards the ground. On the next inhale, looking up towards the hand, and exhale, coming to the hands and knees. And let's flow, exhaling and lowering down towards the mat. Inhaling into cobra, moving towards upward facing dog. And exhaling, lowering down again. Inhaling, pressing back onto hands and knees, and exhaling back into child's pose. Inhaling, looking up at the hands, and then let's exhale, press back into downward facing dog again. A few breaths. Lowering onto the hands and knees, pressing back in the child's pose. On the inhale, looking up at the hands, we'll move through that flow again, exhaling, lowering down towards the ground. Inhaling, raising into cobra or upward facing dog. Exhaling, lowering down. Take an inhale, pressing up and exhaling back into child's pose. Inhaling, looking up at the hands, and exhaling into downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana is the Sanskrit term. Very tight right now. And returning to the child's pose. Next inhale, coming onto the seated posture again, to the knees and ankles. Let's step forward with one foot into a modified lunge. So you can remain here, or you can even lift the rear knee off the ground. I'm just going to remain here for today. And bringing that forward knee over the front ankle. Engaging through the core, bracing forward. And then exhale, we can come back onto the knees again, and it's the seated posture. Bringing the other leg forward into a lunge, and gently pressing that front knee over the front ankle. Bracing the core so there's not too much of a curve in the lower back, but more focusing on opening up around the hip area and thighs. Taking a few release breaths here. Returning back into the seated pose. kneeling. This time we'll add a twist on each side. Stepping the first leg forward again into the lunge and finding that alignment with the front knee towards being on top of the front ankle, about. Then placing our hands together at our chest and twisting towards that front knee. Maybe we go over that knee or just, not even crossing the knee with our elbow. And twist, looking up towards the sky on that side. Taking a few breaths here and noticing. And breathing, returning to the kneeling posture. Moving to the other side into the modified lunge. Sensation around the pelvic area, stretching, releasing all the way up into the abdomen. And we'll twist towards the other side. A few breaths. Returning to center, maybe noticing a difference with each side. And returning to the kneeling posture. Let's move into child's posture and then another downward facing dog. Extending the arms forward and releasing the forehead down. Inhaling, looking up towards the front, and exhaling, pressing back into downward facing dog. Noticing the hands, the fingers spread wide, shoulders pressing down and back a bit, into the sockets kind of, into the shoulder girdle, and pressing the pelvis up towards the sky, the pelvic bone. Taking a few breaths there. Releasing down towards the mat when you're ready. We'll do some seated twists. Coming to a seated posture, bringing our legs in front. Raising the arms up towards the sky and exhaling, folding forward. Noticing the sensations. Being aware of the breath and the movement is one way to have mindfulness in the practice. Let's do our seated twists, bringing one heel to the opposite sit bone and the other heel, the other foot against that front knee. Then we could raise up through the top of the head. And here we're focusing more on twisting from the bottom the torso first before moving a lot of everything else. So even right here, I'm feeling a stretch all along the upper thigh. And here, just breathing as we're extending upward. And if we're ready, twisting towards away from the raised knee. Pressing the shoulders down and away. Twisting. And then releasing. We can bring our knees into a cow pose type movement, stacking the knees over each other as much as is there for now, and safely feeling the stretch along the outside of the thighs. Inhaling, reaching up our chest forward, and exhaling, folding forward, down towards the knees. Taking an inhale and unwinding the legs. Let's do another forward fold, raising arms towards the sky and exhaling, folding. Now let's bring the other heel towards the opposite sit bone and switch up the side on the seated twists. Different sensation here. Then raising up through the top of the head. Inhaling and exhaling as we're releasing. Grab the upper elbow around the knee. Not really pulling too much, but just kind of assisting a little bit. As we're breathing and releasing. It's ridiculously tight right now on my right thigh and hamstrings. I'm trying to keep kind of like a straighter spine, so to speak, like a straighter back. Right now I'm very rounded, but I'm trying to open up and extend through the top of my head and breathing, but it's so tight here that I'm not just going to force myself to do this. I'm first focusing on extending and raising through the spine as we're breathing and releasing. Also inside the torso, I can feel around the abs, releasing. And maybe a twist, if possible. Taking a breath and releasing from that here. Let's do a butterfly pose. I believe that's called Padmasana. Placing the soles of the feet together. And again, extending up forward with the chest, then folding down wherever it comes to. I'm not really forcing it, but I'm just flexing from the back, from the hips and the back. Breathing and feeling some release around the lower back. Also the inside of the thighs. Maybe noticing the soles of the feet. You can even use your thumbs to kind of feel in there. Of course, I'm technically massaging, but I can't teach people to massage because I'm not a massage instructor. That's one thing we can do, is just press into the soles of the feet and notice anything. I'm a licensed massage therapist, however. Now, we can even try that turtle pose where you put the forearms underneath. It's an option because I'm not exactly sure. I've never really taught this in yoga teacher training, so maybe I shouldn't be teaching it. But I think it's kind of the starting point for the firefly pose. And exhaling, folding forward. Taking care of the wrists and the joints, not to get stuck under there. Let's take a few breaths here, noticing and opening the chest. We can come to a cross-legged seated posture. And we'll move towards the mat. So you can roll onto the back. Maybe do a little kind of massage while rolling the back. Definitely tense there. You might notice some tension. Now we can windshield wiper the knees from side to side, noticing that our lower back is kind of in the same spot on the ground. Twisting and releasing a bit gently. Breathing down into it. We'll take a stretch, stretching the arms and the legs away from the body. We can put our arms overhead for a few. Just stretching everything out. Bringing the arms to the side. We'll move into resting pose. Normally I wouldn't teach resting pose while lying down, so I'm gonna sit up, and you can have the option of remaining lying down or finding the seated posture. Feeling the ankles and the back of the hips, bones, elbows and shoulders, the back of the head, sinking down. We'll stay here for a few minutes. Bringing some awareness into the body, perhaps moving our hands and our feet and our arms and legs. We can come to a seated posture. When you're ready, taking a few breaths here in the seated posture. Noticing any difference in the level of calmness or even a release, less tension. More awareness of the breath flowing. Finding ourselves sit bones rooted down, the crown of the head reaching up. And one, putting our hands together and saying namaste.